Welcome to our deep dive today. We're going to be looking at a world that's crucial to how we get new medications, but you probably haven't thought much about. Yeah? Get ready for the fascinating, intricate world of regulatory submissions.
Buckle up because we're covering everything from like those initial applications to test a drug in humans all the way to the massive submissions that pave the way for a new drug to be on the market.
It's really like the behind-the-scenes story of how a promising idea goes from the lab to a treatment that can actually help people. And trust me, there's a lot that goes into that journey. But let's start at the beginning. What exactly are regulatory submissions and why are they so important?
So at their core, regulatory submissions are basically conversations between pharmaceutical companies and regulatory agencies like the FDA. These conversations are in the form of like really carefully prepared documents, almost like incredibly detailed instruction manuals that give all the information the FDA needs to assess the safety and the effectiveness of a new potential drug.
So it's not just about proving that the drug works. It's about creating this whole comprehensive package that demonstrates beyond a doubt that a drug is safe, effective, and can be manufactured reliably.
Precisely. You can think of it as building a case piece by piece to convince the FDA that this drug is ready for the next stage, whether that's moving from animal studies to human trials or ultimately seeking approval to market the drug to the public.
Okay, that makes sense. So let's get into the different types of submissions. You mentioned starting with human trials. That brings us to IND, right?
Yes, exactly. The IND, or Investigational New Drug Application, that's the first big hurdle a new drug has to clear. Before they can even think about giving it to a human, a company needs to submit an IND to the FDA to get the green light to start clinical trials.
Okay, so what does that IND package actually look like? What kind of information does the FDA need to see before they're like, yep, you can start testing this in humans?
Well, it's a pretty comprehensive package. They need to see evidence from animal studies that demonstrate the drug is both safe and potentially effective. So imagine this. They're not just looking for a drug that might work. They want some proof that it has a chance of helping people without causing harm.
Right, safety first. Makes sense. So what else goes in that package?
They also need detailed information about how the drug is manufactured. It's not just about the ingredients. It's about ensuring that every batch of the drug is produced the same way, meeting very, very strict quality standards. It's like a recipe with extremely tight tolerances because you don't want any surprises with medication.
That's a great analogy. So they're showing the FDA that they can make the drug reliably in a way that meets those high standards, but we're still pre-human testing, right?
Right. The last key piece of the IND is a detailed outline of the planned clinical trials. This roadmap includes who is conducting the research qualifications of the investigators, the safety measures that are going to protect the volunteers, and of course, the overall design of the trials.
So it's like showing the FDA, here's how we plan to study this drug in humans. Here are the experts who will be overseeing the process, and here are all the steps we're taking to prioritize safety. It's a lot more than just, hey, we have a new drug, let's see what happens.
Exactly. The IND is all about showing that the company has done their homework, that they have a good plan, and that they're committed to conducting those trials responsibly and ethically.
That's reassuring.
Okay.
Okay, so let's fast forward a bit. Assuming the trials go well and the drug shows promise, what happens next? Is that when the NDA comes into play?
Yes, you got it. The NDA, or New Drug Application, that's the ultimate goal, the culmination of years of research and testing. It's the massive submission that goes to the FDA when a company believes they have enough evidence to show that their drug is safe, effective, and ready to be sold to the public.
Oh, this sounds like a big one. What goes into an NDA? Is it like a giant report summarizing everything they've learned about the drug?
It's basically the complete story of the drug from when it's discovered to the results of all of the clinical trials. It's like putting together a huge puzzle, making sure every piece fits perfectly, and the full picture shows that this drug deserves a place in the market.
So what kind of information are we talking about here? What are like the key pieces of that puzzle?
You got all the preclinical data, which includes everything they learned about the drug before it even got to humans. That covers its chemical structure, how it's made its effects in animal studies, and any early signs of its potential safety and effectiveness.
So they're not just starting with the human data, they're giving context by showing everything they've learned.
Exactly. Then, of course, you have the results of all the clinical trials. That's where it gets detailed, because they need to show data on the drug's safety and its effectiveness. They need to prove that it works, and the benefits are greater than any risks.
Okay, that makes sense. It's all about safety and effectiveness based on real evidence.
Hmm.
What else goes in the NDA?
Well, believe it or not, they even have to submit the proposed labeling for the drug. I mean, the FDA looks at every word on that label, making sure the information is accurate, clear, and easy for both doctors and patients to understand.
Wait, so even the label is part of the submission? I never would have thought of that.
It's all part of making sure that the drug is used correctly and safely. And last but not least, they include detailed manufacturing specifications to show that the drug can be produced at a large scale still with those really strict quality standards.
So the NDA is like the final exam, proving not only that the drug works and is safe,
Mhm.
but that it can be made reliably and that it has clear instructions for use. That is a lot to cover.
It is, and it can take years to put together a successful NDA submission. It involves a lot of people, scientists, clinicians, regulatory experts, and more. It's really a team effort.
It sounds like it. Now, you mentioned IND and NDA, but what about those other acronyms like BLAs? Where do those fit in?
Oh, yeah. BLAs, or Biologics License Applications, are similar to NDAs, but with a twist. They're specifically for biologics, which are kind of a different type of drug. Think vaccines, gene therapies, monoclonal antibodies. These are complex medications made from living organisms, which makes their development and manufacturing more complicated.
Ah, so it's not just the regulatory process, it's the drug itself.
Yeah.
Because biologics are so complex, they need a special approach.
Exactly. The BLA reflects those challenges, making sure that the FDA has all the info they need to assess these complex medications.
Okay, so we've got INDs for initial trials, NDAs for traditional drugs, and BLAs for those complex biologics. It's like choose your own adventure depending on what type of drug you're developing.
That's a good way to think about it. And we've only just started to explore this world. There are more specialized submissions out there, like drug master files and 505(b)(2) applications, each with their own twists and turns.
Oh, wow, there's more. I'm feeling like we're down the rabbit hole. But I love a good challenge. So tell me about these drug master files. What makes them special?
Yeah, so drug master files, or DMFs, they're kind of like confidential ingredient recipes submitted to the FDA.
Oh, ingredient recipes. That sounds interesting. Why do they need to be kept secret?
It's all about protecting intellectual property. Let's say a company develops a really innovative new ingredient or process for making a drug. They don't want to give away all their secrets, right?
That makes sense. You don't want your competitors just copying your hard work.
Exactly. So a DMF allows them to share some information about the ingredient or the process with the FDA without revealing all the nitty-gritty details. It's kind of like saying, hey, FDA, trust us, we know what we're doing, and this ingredient is safe and effective. But they don't have to spill all the beans on exactly how they made it.
So it's like a little black box of information that the FDA can use to verify the quality and safety of the drug without necessarily knowing all the trade secrets behind it.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And it's not just about protecting the company's secrets, it also streamlines the process for other companies that might want to use that same ingredient in their own drugs.
Ah, so if another company wants to use that same ingredient, they can reference the existing DMF instead of having to start from scratch with their own research and testing.
Exactly. It saves everyone time and resources, and it avoids unnecessary duplication of effort. It's a win-win for the industry and for patients, ultimately.
Okay, so we've got DMFs for those secret ingredient recipes.
Mhm.
What about those 505(b)(2) applications you mentioned earlier? Those sounded pretty intriguing too.
Oh, yeah, 505(b)(2)s, those are kind of a hybrid approach. Imagine you have a drug that's already been approved by the FDA.
Okay, I'm picturing it. So this drug has already gone through the whole NDA process, proven its safety and effectiveness, and it's out there helping people.
Right. Now, let's say you want to make a new version of that drug, maybe with a different dosage or a new delivery method, or maybe you want to use it to treat a different condition.
Okay, so you're not starting from scratch.
Yeah.
You're building on an existing drug that already has a proven track record.
Exactly, and that's where the 505(b)(2) comes in. It allows companies to leverage some of the existing data on the approved drug to support their application for a new version or a new use.
So it's like a shortcut. It can save a lot of time and money because they don't have to repeat all the original research and testing.
Precisely. And it can be a real game changer for bringing new treatments to patients faster. But it's not just a free pass. They still need to conduct their own studies to demonstrate that the new version or the new use is also safe and effective.
So it's kind of like a balance between efficiency and scientific rigor. They're building on existing knowledge, but they're also doing their due diligence to make sure the new application is solid.
Exactly. And it's a really interesting area of regulatory science because it requires a deep understanding of the original drug, the proposed changes, and the regulatory requirements for demonstrating safety and efficacy in this specific context.
It sounds like a pretty intricate puzzle to put together.
It definitely is. And we could probably do a whole deep dive just on 505(b)(2)s, but for now, I think we've covered the basics.
Okay, so we've explored INDs, NDAs, BLAs, DMFs, and even those 505(b)(2) applications. Is there anything else we need to know about the world of regulatory submissions?
Well, it's a vast and ever-changing landscape. But I think one of the most important things to understand is that it's not just about paperwork and bureaucracy. At its heart, it's all about protecting public health.
That's a good point. Sometimes it's easy to get lost in the technical details and forget about the bigger picture.
Right. So remember, every time you see a new drug on the market or you hear about a promising new treatment being developed, there's a whole team of dedicated professionals who have worked tirelessly to make sure that drug is safe and effective. And it all starts with those complex, often invisible regulatory submissions.
That's a good reminder. These submissions are more than just documents. They represent years of research, scientific expertise, and a commitment to bringing life-changing treatments to the people who need them most.
Absolutely. And as we continue to learn more about disease and develop new therapies, these submissions will play an even more crucial role in shaping the future of healthcare.
Speaking of learning more, is there anything else you wanted to share about these fascinating regulatory submissions? Any other insights or stories that might shed light on this often hidden world?
We've been talking a lot about the big picture, but I think it's worth zooming in on some of the nitty-gritty details that go into these regulatory submissions.
Oh, yeah. I'm all about the details. What kind of things are we talking about?
Well, let's talk about packaging and labeling, for example. You might not think it's a big deal, but it's actually super important from a regulatory standpoint.
Really? So it's not just about making the drug, it's about how it's packaged and presented too.
Absolutely. The FDA has really strict regulations around how drugs are packaged and labeled to ensure the quality and safety of the product and to prevent things like mix-ups or contamination.
That makes sense. You don't want someone accidentally taking the wrong medication because the label was confusing or the packaging was faulty.
Exactly. So there are specific guidelines that companies have to follow, and these cover everything from the materials used in the packaging to the information that's printed on the label.
So, like, what kind of information are we talking about here? What needs to be on that label?
Oh, it's a lot more than just the drug name and the dosage. You've got to have things like the manufacturer's information, the lot number, the expiration date, storage instructions, warnings about potential side effects, and so much more.
Well, that's a lot to cram onto a little label. And I imagine it all has to be presented in a clear and concise way so that people can actually understand it.
Right. It's got to be easy to read and understand for both healthcare professionals and patients. And they even have regulations around the font size and the language used to make sure it's accessible to everyone.
So they really do think of everything. It's amazing how much detail goes into this.
Yeah, and it's not just about the label itself, it's about the whole packaging process. They have to make sure the packaging is tamper-proof, that it protects the drug from damage or degradation, and that it's designed in a way that prevents mix-ups or errors.
So like having different colored pills or capsules for different strengths of a drug, or using clearly labeled bottles or blister packs to separate doses.
Exactly. It's all about minimizing the risk of human error and ensuring that the patient gets the right medication at the right dose every time.
So basically, they're creating a system that's as foolproof as possible.
Precisely. Because when it comes to medications, even a small mistake can have serious consequences. And, we've been focusing a lot on the U.S. regulatory system, but these principles apply globally. Different countries might have slightly different regulations, but the overall goal is the same: to protect public health and make sure that medications are used safely and effectively.
It's reassuring to know that there are these safeguards in place no matter where you are in the world.
Absolutely. And it's a testament to the collaborative nature of science and medicine. Researchers, clinicians, regulators, and manufacturers all over the world are working together to bring new treatments to patients and to make sure those treatments are used responsibly.
Well said. And to our listeners, we hope you've enjoyed this deep dive into the world of regulatory submissions. It's a complex and often hidden world, but it plays a crucial role in shaping the future of healthcare. So the next time you pick up a prescription or hear about a new drug being developed, take a moment to appreciate the science, the research, the regulations, and the dedicated people who have made that treatment possible. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring.